From an increased focus on safety measures to whether the past legends would be successful in the modern era, here's how boxing has changed since the last generation of fighters. Starting off with safety measures, which I have to say everyone is very thankful for. Some old heads may think the game has gone soft, but that's not true at all. It's a welcome change to introduce more safety measures for boxers, because boxing is a dangerous sport. Even with all these new measures, there have been way too many incidents in the past to ignore safety recommendations. Now, the referees have more power to stop fights. However, that wasn't the case, say, 30 to 40 years ago. Fighters didn't have to wear headgear either before, but that has become an important rule as well, with mandatory headgear, improved medical supervision, and the referees being able to stop fights when they feel a fighter's in danger. The sport has become safer and better. Unfortunately, not every change has been a good one. That's because there's been a shift in boxing's popularity. A major one. The fact that the likes of Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson are still the biggest names in boxing, for the people who are not hardcore fans that is, shows just how much boxing has suffered in the last few decades in terms of popularity. UFC changed combat sports forever, with fans flocking to MMA because it's considered quicker and more entertaining. In the past, that wasn't the case. Major boxing events were watched by millions of people all around the world. But with the likes of soccer, basketball, and MMA taking over, boxing has seen a swift decline in the number of high-profile fights, along with a reduction in terms of money generation too. Still though, pay for boxers has increased over the past 30 to 40 years. It may not have kept pace with inflation, but that's because of the decreasing interest in the sport. However, the difference is still massive. Muhammad Ali's biggest purse in 1978 got him $6 million, which in today's economy would be upwards of $25 million. Compare that to Floyd Mayweather and Canelo Alvarez taking home money in excess of $100 million. So this one's a mixed bag for sure. But the next change isn't, as female boxing wasn't even considered a sport at one point. Try saying that in 2023. You'd get crucified for that, and rightfully so. Female boxing has become a major source of revenue for boxing as a whole, and female boxers are getting so much more recognition, particularly over the course of the last decade or so. Of course, it's still a mismatch when you compare it to the men's side of things, but we're getting there. There are also a lot more female boxers than there were 10 to 15 years ago, and it's mostly because they can earn more and live off of boxing alone, something that just wasn't even considered possible not too long ago. So that's a positive change for sure, just like the introduction of weight classes. This hasn't only increased interest in the sport, with more fighters being able to join the sport, but it has also made boxing a safe sport. There's an even playing field, with much more competitive fights. Compare that to the past, when there were only 8 weight classes. Nowadays, there are 17 weight classes, and that means boxers can choose to fight in a weight class that suits their weight. Unlike before, when they had to make huge cuts just to be able to fight. Not only was that dangerous, but also put those boxers at health risk, because they would undergo all sorts of unhealthy ways of losing weight. And with more boxers looking to make a name for themselves in the industry, there's also been a change in the boxing business model. In the past, there were a handful of powerful promoters who ran the show. Boxers were heavily dependent on their promoters to get them good fights. But that's not the case anymore. Not only have boxers made more of a name for themselves in the modern era, thanks to social media and whatnot, but there's been an increase in independent promoters as well. This allows more fights to take place, especially at the lower levels, and allows more fighters to live their dream of becoming a boxer, while retaining control of their careers. Again, this is something that boxers of the past couldn't even fathom. They were at the mercy of a promoter, and he called all the shots. I'd say it's a fantastic change, especially when you consider that boxers can trash talk one another too, and build up their fights on their own as well, which helps in the entertainment factor. And in a way, it has allowed the globalization of the sport too. Yeah, think about it. All the famous names in boxing were from the United States in the 20th century. While most boxers still fight under the Star-Spangled Banner, Boxing has definitely become a global sport. You've got the likes of Canelo Alvarez from Mexico, Manny Pacquiao from the Philippines, Sergey Kovalev, Alexander Povetkin, and many, many more from Russia, not to mention the big names out of the United Kingdom, like Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Dylan White, etc. This diversity has made the sport a lot more enjoyable because fans from different countries can get behind stars from their nations, and that adds more interest in the fights. But one of the biggest game changers of the modern era has to be the use of technology and the way it has completely revamped the sport. Advances in tech have improved boxing big time. The referees can make more accurate decisions in close fights, thanks to instant replay. There's also more material for boxers to analyze their training and physical performance, and not just their own, but opponents as well, which helps in preparing for their fights. This is a major help because in the past, you'd need scouts present at the major events to pick up on what your opponent was good at. But now, a simple YouTube search can give you a lowdown on just about any boxer in the world. It has made fights much more competitive. And with lesser chance of a surprise, they tend to go the distance as well. And thanks to technology, sports science has become a crucial part of boxing too. Not only does that allow boxers to remain in perfect shape all year long, but with the introduction of heart rate monitors, GPS tracking, and other very high-level performance analytics, they can improve their training and performance in the ring. This is a game changer in the way boxers prepare for their fights, because in the past, you could improve your skill through sparring or bag work. And now, it's a totally different ballgame. From strength and conditioning, a heavy emphasis on becoming physically fit and strong, more weightlifting, plyometrics, other sorts of resistance training to build endurance and strength, all these things have made boxers a lot more powerful than they were in the past. And perhaps one of the most important factors has been nutrition. Oh, yeah, definitely. Most high-profile boxers spend big money on dietitians and nutritionists who develop meal plans tailored to what every different body type needs. This helps the boxers consume the right nutrients. As a result, it aids in training and competition. But you've got to factor in the advanced equipment and tactical training too. Given the higher amount of information available, boxers spend more time developing and refining their strengths and weaknesses and getting better prepared for their competition. Not only do they come up with more suitable game plans and practice specific tactics for different scenarios, but it also allows them to work on mental toughness, visualization, and relaxation techniques to improve the physiological aspect of boxing too. And the advanced equipment at their disposal goes a long way in helping. Modern boxing gloves, for instance, are so much lighter and a lot more durable. Your hands are better protected, and they allow greater speed and mobility too. The risk of concussion is at an all-time low because of greater protection. So ultimately, these are big positive changes, which raises the biggest question. Would the legends of the past be able to dominate at the same level in today's boxing landscape? Well, there are very good arguments for yes and no. So, boxing has evolved massively, and there have been a number of new rules and regulations introduced. The drug tests haven't only become mandatory, but are also a lot harder to cheat. The boxers of this era have a lot more access to advanced training techniques, like we discussed earlier. But who's to say that if the likes of Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Mike Tyson had access to modern tech, they wouldn't be better? I'd say they'd be much more dangerous if they had all these advantages, but it's harder to say for sure because the modern-day fighter has to adapt a lot. And then, of course, there's always a risk of getting written off by the social media keyboard warriors. Not that Muhammad Ali would have been affected by such tweets, but you never know. At the end of the day, boxing's a subjective sport, and there are way too many factors that influence a fighter's success. Style, strategy, mentality, willingness to adapt, etc. So this is a question that we probably can't answer, even with all the advancements in the sport. So from asking whether the boxers of the last generation would be able to adapt to the modern era to significant changes in the safety measures, this is all I have on how boxing has changed since the last generation.